The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
It's the Wi-Fi here. All right. Call the April 1st, 2025 Local Government Commission meeting to order. I have a handful of agenda changes for everyone up front, just to make sure everyone's aware of that for those who are listening online or in person. First, the Bethlehem matter, which was attachment E in your materials. At the request of the petitioner has been pulled from the agenda. We'll address that in part when we get to that point. And then in addition, we're going to move up the consent agenda to our second order of business after the minutes. The reason for that is that one of the issuers on there is supposed to issue tomorrow. For those who follow financial markets, it is expected to be a reasonably consequential day tomorrow. So they would like to issue today. And we want to accommodate that if we can. So those will be the changes in the agenda. The other obvious and most important thing that's happening today is it is Debbie's last meeting as chair of the local, or as the secretary of the Local Government Commission. We will miss her. We appreciate all of her service to our state, and ask if you have the time to stick around after the meeting to honor her briefly. With that, I'll ask Cindy to call the roll.
Thank you. This is Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel. And we will start with Bill Toole, designee for Secretary Marshall.
Here.
Present in the room. And Auditor Bolick.
Said he'd be here.
Okay, he's perhaps arriving shortly.
He is.
Secretary Wooten. Oh, we see him through the window. Right. And meanwhile, Secretary Wooten
Here.
is here in the room. Mr. Burns.
Here.
Also here in person. Mr. Butler.
Here.
Thank you. Participating virtually is Ms. Harvey.
Here.
Thank you. Participating virtually, Councilwoman Hoffman.
Here.
Thank you. Also virtual, Mr. Philbeck.
Here.
Thank you. Also virtual, Treasurer Briner
Here.
is in the room. And just in time, Auditor Bolick.
Here.
Thank you. In person. The LGC staff present in person are Secretary Debbie Tomasco, Debt Management Director Jennifer Wimmer, Fiscal Management Director Kendra Boyle. Just want to remind everyone that our meeting proceedings are being recorded and they will be made available to the public pursuant to the department's recording of public meetings policy. We would remind folks to please identify yourself when speaking. If you are participating virtually, please mute yourself when you're not speaking. Hopefully we don't have any power or audio-visual problems. If we do, the meeting possibly will continue to be recorded, so just keep that in mind if you're online. Treasurer already announced some changes to the agenda. All votes will take roll call, and if members have no objection, we will continue to use your motions and seconds as yes votes unless you want to change that during the roll call. And that's the end. Thank you.
A couple other people to recognize. First, Jeff Poley joins us today. Jeff will be stepping in as interim secretary of the Local Government Commission after Debbie leaves us. So welcome, Jeff. Happy to have you here. And then a number of folks who are on the agenda are here virtually and then some in person. So we have representatives from Elizabeth City, the City of Charlotte, Johnston County, Rockingham County, from the DOT and Davenport for the Garveys, all virtual. Gentleman from Wake County in person, and a gentleman from Belmont in person as well. So thank you all for being here and for your attention. With that, let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the flag.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the Old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you. Okay, conflict of interest. Please take a minute to review the agenda. Commission members are reminded of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any member have an actual or potential conflict of interest with respect to any matter on the agenda? Hearing none.
Mr. Treasurer. I do.
Yeah.
Mr. Treasurer, the Lutheran Retirement Ministries of Alamance County matter is one that I'll need to recuse myself from.
Medcare Commission.
Okay, so we'll pull that from the consent agenda. So we'll pull that item from the consent agenda. Twin Lakes. Okay, so the first matter is the approval of the March minutes. Those minutes were in your packet. Do I have any discussion, questions, or I'm happy to entertain a motion if not? How about a motion?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Wooten, second.
Second.
Mr. Burns, please call the roll.
Okay, that's minutes of March 4th. Wooten, Burns, Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Thank you. Auditor Bolick.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Briner.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
All right, we are on minutes. Thank you. Let's move to attachment D, which is the consent agenda with the exception of the Twin Lakes Retirement Community matter, which we just removed from that.
Just a quick note, it was noted that for folks who are looking at the agenda online, that there is not a write-up for the Garvey item included in the online agenda. Members did receive that write-up in their packets, and it is listed on the agenda. It's just that that particular one sheet was inadvertently omitted from the packet posted online. So we'll have that remedied, but it has no reflection on anything to do with that item. It was just an inadvertent omission, so.
You?
Before you today, the consent agenda consists of the items listed Buncombe County through all the miscellaneous action items, including the one that was sent, that's miscellaneous action item that was sent to you after the original packet went out. I'd like to take just a minute and say that the City of Asheville miscellaneous action item that was already approved, they're looking to update the final maturity. This was because the item came to you in October of 2024, but they were going to have their sale in 2024. Therefore, the maturity was going to be in 2044. So the sale took place in 2025, meaning we need to update our approval for the maturity to stay in 2045. All other terms remain the same, and if there's any other questions on items on the consent agenda, I'd be happy to take them.
Questions from anybody? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the one item removed.
So moved.
Mr. Burns.
Second.
Second.
Second, Nancy Hoffman.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Okay, one more time, consent agenda, Buncombe through the 4 miscellaneous minus NC Medcare Commission matter. Burns, Hoffman, Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Thank you. Auditor Bolick.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Wooten.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
And Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
And Treasurer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. Should we now go to the Twin Lakes Retirement Community matter?
I move approval, Philbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Philbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Secretary Wooten? Please call the roll.
All right, Medicare Commission matter, Philbeck, Wooten. Mr. Toole?
Aye.
Auditor Bolick?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Thanks. Mr. Butler?
Aye.
Ms. Harvey recuses. Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Treasurer Reiner?
Aye.
That motion carries.
Okay, we are done with the consent agenda and we will go back to the regular order of business. First, as always, we'll talk about OPEB liabilities, like everyone's day. If you go to attachment A, you will see each of the issuers in front of us. Their OPEB liabilities, the fiduciary positions they have against those liabilities. Some of them are making good progress against those. Of course, the state on the state health plan side needs to make better progress than all of these. But we always want to call attention to this as we think about holistically managing the balance sheet of our issuing members. So with that, let's move to attachment B, which is the Belmont matter. And I will turn it to Jennifer and Kendra to present.
Good afternoon. This unit has material FPICs, so that is why it is pulled separately. They are coming to issue an installment purchase agreement in the amount of $780,000. It's with Pinnacle Bank for 5 years for lighting and park updates for their park in baseball field. And I will let Kendra discuss their FPICs.
Good afternoon. You have in your packet the list of the financial performance indicators of concern that we had noticed in the fiscal year 2024 audit report for the city of Belmont. These are, one of them is a financial condition indicator. The others are internal control related. This unit is on the unit assistance list and has been since 2020. Their main issue that they have had since 2020 was having difficulty in getting audited financial statements to us. They had, as we have heard from so many other units, a finance officer who left. There was someone in place that did not stay long, and then it took time to find another finance officer. But since then, when that finance officer came in, they were 2 years, possibly even 3 years behind at that time. But they have now gotten caught up. They were able to get 3 audit reports in a period of about 15 months. And now they have gotten their fiscal year 23 audit report in, and that was only maybe 3 weeks after the due date, and their 24 came in, and it was even sooner than that, which is particularly impressive since they are Gaston County in an area where that was affected by Hurricane Helene. So those are the factors related to being on the unit assistance list. These financial performance indicators of concern, many of them come from the same issue, that one issue can roll off multiple things related to internal controls. But they have provided us with a response that we feel that if it is put in place efficiently, will be effective. And we have looked, because they are on the unit assistance list, we have looked at their 6-month budget to actual report. It does appear that it is helping with their financial condition in their water and sewer fund. And we will be following up with looking at a 9-month budget to actual report as well, and looking at a draft of their fiscal year 26 budget. So those are the facts that I felt like you all needed to know before you made a decision on this debt approval. Their debt approval will be serviced by their general fund, and their general fund has not had any financial condition issues in the last 4 years at least. And their finance officer is here today as well.
Any questions on this matter for staff or the finance officer is here?
To the finance officer, come on. Hey, how are you?
Can you step up?
Yeah, that'd be great, just so people can hear you. So I've had the pleasure of being in Belmont over the last several months, a couple different times. Growing community, is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And how is, I mean, the traffic on 85 is terrible right there, by the way. That's the worst traffic in North Carolina. But I know that the town has done a really good job in terms of navigating that and becoming its own community, not just solely a bedroom community for Charlotte. What is the future growth prospect for Belmont? It seems like a really great place to live.
You know, we've been growing, I want to say exponentially over the last 5 to 10 years. A lot of development applications. South Point Road continues to be a hotspot for development. However, you mentioned traffic. There are major traffic concerns down that way, as well as sewage capacity. So we're addressing both of those. We are doing a sewer capacity. We've done water sewer rate studies to try to offset the deficits that we've had in the water sewer fund. But I'll speak kind of how our council discussed it. We're looking into smart growth. So everything is decided on individually. So when these developers are coming, they're in the weeds. Our council's in the weeds on this and making decisions based on what's going to be best for our community.
And I will tell you, just from the audit, I've been in office now 90 days, and as Kendra sort of alluded to in terms of audits and things like that, it's not unusual to hear as part of an issue turnover in the finance department and lack of folks being able to fill those vital roles. How are you in terms of like filling those roles and succession planning and building your bench in terms of highly skilled folks to help with the financial reporting?
Sure. So since I took over in November of 2021, my entire team has basically turned over. I had a temp that we had hired early. It was about a week into my tenure to help us try to get caught up on those audits. I since then requested a position in the fiscal year 2022 for a full-time accountant. And once that position was approved, I hired that temp full-time. He has since been promoted to deputy finance director, and we have since hired a new accountant, and she came from Belmont Abbey College. We just hired her about a year ago. And so I think right now my team is the strongest it's been since I've been there, and we're continuing to make massive strides as far as staying current, developing internal controls, segregating duties, all those things.
Well, just know if you need any help from the state auditor's office, we're glad to assist you if you need that. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Auditor, I have to note that I got here very quickly because my designated sit-in, Bill Toole, formerly served on the town council of Belmont. And I didn't want to put him in a very bad place.
Just one quick question. On the water and sewer side, you note that there are future rate increases coming. What's the magnitude of those?
Approximately 8% per year. That is going to be fluid, however. That's going to tie into operating costs, our capital improvement plan. And as you know, those projects can come up that we may have not seen prior to the rate study. So approximately 8% per year over the next 10 years. Prior to this rate study, the city had not done a rate study for the previous 6 years, and I don't believe rates had increased since 2016 or 2018. So it's very difficult to run a 2025, 2026 water sewer fund on 2016 rates. So we made an effort in fiscal year 2024 to address that, and we'll continue to do so.
And those rates contemplate all the new regulations around PFAS and everything else.
Say again, sorry?
Do those new rates contemplate all the new regulations around PFAS and other very expensive water upgrades that are?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I'll now entertain a motion on the Belmont Act.
So moved.
Boy. Second. Beat you to it. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Auditor Bullock, Secretary Wooten for Belmont Act. Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Thanks. Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thanks. Councilwoman Huffman?
Aye.
You, Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Run?
Aye.
That motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Okay, we'll move over to attachment C, the Elizabeth City item. You, Jennifer.
So before you today is Elizabeth City, but it is a conduit financing. This unit is on the unit assistance list. That is why we wanted to keep consistency and pull it for an individual discussion item. However, this is not their debt that the city is taking on itself. This is a conduit revenue bond. Most of the ones that come before the commission are noted in housing authorities. So this debt is actually tax exempt, but it will be loaned then to the developer who will then build affordable housing. This project has already gotten volume cap tax exemption from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, as all the conduit financing for affordable housing that come before the commission have done. So this is for $22 million. And there is tax credit equity because they use low income housing tax credits to make the sources and uses work for these particular projects. This is to build affordable housing within Elizabeth City. So just wanted to kind of pull that aside separately. So it is not their unit debt, but just wanted to explain that.
Questions on this matter? And I think we have our representatives virtually if there are any questions for them.
We have Mark DeMay, who's the finance director online, as well as Reginald Goodson, the city manager.
Just some questions for staff. So I've got a pretty good understanding of the conduit system, but what ultimately, what would be Elizabeth City's liability? Let's say the developer defaulted.
None. They have no liability in this. They are using Elizabeth City as a conduit issuer, so that the financing is tax exempt.
We had that same question with the Garvey.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Please.
I have a question that's kind of one off from that. Affordable housing is a serious issue in every community, every point. And I've done a lot of small business listening, and it's just really an incredible problem. Is there any limitation to the number of type of or dollar volume of this type of activity that can be brought to bear all across North Carolina?
Yes, the number of projects, they have a annual volume cap through the Housing Finance Agency through the track allocation that they can use towards this tax exemption for private entities to issue tax exempt bonds. Specifically, Housing Finance Agency does affordable housing with, not only their own financing, but then this allocation to these developers. All of these projects have feasibility study, market analysis, and they look at the need of each community. As you've seen coming through the commission in Livian, which used to be known as Charlotte Housing Authority, they have, one right after the other. It is a function of the demand in a particular area, plus what the developer has been working on with the location of land and also the surrounding areas. The Housing Finance Agency takes a look at each one of not only the applications that come in from the developer, but they have a set of standards. And, I can research that a little bit more, but most of them are transportation, medical, school has to be within a certain mile range for these houses to.
That deals with locating them.
Correct.
Is there a volume cap every year of how much of these could be offered?
Right, and if you notice, there's at the end of the year, some of the projects that got funded with a volume cap earlier in that process year. They've worked through the actual deal, and then if they've gone out to bid or gotten estimates, then we've come back on several occasions where they've gotten volume cap for, it doesn't close in that year, and they get volume cap to make up the difference if the project has increased in scope or price.
Is there any part of the criteria that rates one county, one town against another as to who might be on the priority list for availability for these?
That I'm not quite sure. I'm sure that there's some process that they have in granting these application approvals, but I don't have those specifics.
I'd like to learn more. Where do I go? Where do I go?
North Carolina Housing Finance Agency.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, our volume cap at the state last year was 1.7, something like that, $1.7 billion. My sense, and correct me if you have a different sense, is that our deficit is in projects, not in volume cap. So the scarce resources projects.
Okay.
Okay, I will now entertain a motion on the Elizabeth City matter.
Treasurer,
Yes, sir.
Treasurer, a couple of things. When you're talking about this volume cap, is that the same amount of money we were looking at for that titanium project in Fayetteville several months ago?
Exactly correct. That's part of the volume cap for 2024 and for 2025. We expect to be that part of that project.
Okay. And next question, Treasurer, is the developer's fee. I know it seems like the city's not liable. Is that in line with a project like this? The number they've got there, $3.3 million?
Yes, yes, it is, Mr. Butler.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask one other question? And I read through the details of the 60% income level. Is there a general, is there a specific rule on what defines, quote, affordable housing? Like, what is the definition, or is there one? Because my sense is there's not a definition.
So again, the Housing Finance Agency has their, where they can do 20%, 40%, 60%, and 80% of AMI is, the 80% is considered workforce housing. So if you ever hear a definition of affordable housing versus workforce housing, and then there's market rate housing. So if, they're trying to build these units, they still have their management, they're collecting rents because most of these are not subsidized by any of the housing authorities that come through here. So, but their rents are based on low-income housing tax credits, the rental income coming into that, and it's based, and they're running the numbers at the 60% AMI with that connected to it. But
Charlotte's the only place I've heard them use workforce so far.
Raleigh.
there's a few.
We're gonna hear it a lot.
Maybe, yeah, I mean, I've heard it in Charlotte, that's where I heard it.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on the Elizabeth City matter.
So moved.
Secretary Marshall, second.
Second.
Secretary Wooten, please call the roll.
For Elizabeth City conduit revenue bonds, Marshall and Wooten. Golick.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey. Aye. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Briner.
Aye.
Thank you all. Motion carries.
Carries. Thank you. We're done voting for the day. Let's move on to first attachment E, which is the Bethlehem matter. Again, that has been pulled from the agenda. But I've asked Debbie to walk you all through what it is exactly that we're being asked to do to make it very clear the role of this commission. And I'll turn it over to you and then I'll make some comments afterwards.
Thank you, Treasurer. For those who were with us in November of '22, Mr. Burns, Secretary Marshall, we had a similar request come before us at that time. And what the request was for a statement from the LGC for a community that wanted to seek incorporation from the General Assembly. And under those applicable statutes, their petition, a community that wishes to incorporate and submit a petition to the General Assembly needs to include in that petition a statement from the LGC regarding the proposed municipalities' prospects for effective fiscal management and financial viability. So what staff, that requirement for that statement only came into play in 2021, I believe. It was a session law in 2021. So we really haven't seen, this is only the second time we received such a request. The first, again, was voted on back in November 22. So when staff received these requests, we developed a list of questions that we provided to the who we're calling the petitioner, just to make it easy reference, that we provided to the petitioner that we thought would give us a good basis to make an assessment and to develop a recommendation for the commission to vote on in order to provide a statement. So we undertook that process with this petitioner. We provided a list of questions. We received a response. We followed up. We received response to that follow-up, and those communications are all in the packet that you received. Based on the information that we had, we drafted a recommendation, and again, that was included in your packet. We did receive a number of comments from citizens in that area that were included in your packet. I will note that there were additional comments that you don't have before you, because under our policy, we give you everything we have at the time we send the materials to you, and then we would send you any remaining comments essentially the morning of the meeting. Since this was pulled from consideration, we didn't follow up with those additional comments. The role of the LGC in municipal incorporation, it is literally that. It is one sentence in that statute. It is for the LGC to provide at the request of the petitioner to provide a statement so that it can be included in the statement. Again, limited to the proposed municipalities' prospects for financial viability and effective fiscal management. Neither the LGC staff nor the LGC has a part in weighing in on the incorporation itself or any decisions about incorporation. It's just limited to that very specific role. So with the petitioner withdrawing their request for the statement, at this point we consider the matter closed. Again, under the statutes and the timeline outlined for those petitions, it's a 60-day requirement prior to the start of a regular session for a petition to be submitted. So I would anticipate if they were to continue with this, with their efforts, that we wouldn't see them, this matter come back until probably 2026 sometime. So at this point, again, we consider the matter closed, but just again wanted to explain why you had received the materials, why we're no longer voting on them, and just to be really clear because of how much interest there was in this matter about its very specific and limited role of the LGC in this process, in the incorporation process.
Are there any questions about that? Okay, maybe I'll make a couple comments as well. So I think staff has done a fantastic job of staying within the four corners of the statute here, considering the facts at hand and nothing else. They concluded that they did not want to make the recommendation that we should provide a statement. The difference between staff and the commission members, to me, comes down to the public comments. We received well over 100, and I think it's hundreds now, of public comments here. In addition to the four corners of the information, to me, part of considering financial viability is considering the people's will to pay those taxes and to be a municipality in and of itself. I don't precisely know where that ends and where the math of it begins, but for me, it was very concerning to have read literally hundreds out of only several thousand citizens being against this and to conclude that we could recommend financial viability. We're not going to have that discussion today necessarily, but in the future, I think for those who are listening or are considering things like this, there is more than just math that needs to be done, I think, by the commission, but the staff is appropriately focused on that math. That's what I wanted to make sure that everyone heard from us today. But again, as Debbie said, we consider this matter closed, and so we might see it again in the future.
Just as a matter of curiosity, and we talked about it briefly earlier this morning, there is, Cindy, am I correct? There is no requirement that the people who would be affected in a creation of a new town gets a right to vote on yes or no on that?
Correct. The General Assembly could choose to add that as a condition in a bill, or they could flat out just create a municipality without that. But that's where that would be where that option would arise, from the will of the General Assembly.
Anything else on this matter? Okay, to no less important but maybe less controversial, let's move on to late audits.
Commission members, I just wanted to provide sort of a refresher or introduction to this late audit process. This was, again, a result of something fairly recently. Session Law 2023-59 provided the commission with the authority to withhold a portion of a county or municipality's sales tax distributions if one of those units did not submit an annual audit as required by law within 12 months of fiscal year end. Just to be clear up front, again, this only applies to counties and municipalities. If I revert to using the word unit, which we use all the time for all of our units, please know that I'm only speaking about counties and municipalities here. So that essentially is what the law, the authority that the law gave to the commission. What that looks like in practice and through other details of the law over the next few months, the law requires that units that counties and municipalities that have not submitted an audit within 9 months of fiscal year end, which would be to us March 31st, receives a notice of noncompliance. So essentially, as of midnight this morning, any county or municipality that has not submitted a fiscal year 2024 audit yet will receive a letter from our staff notifying them that they haven't submitted that audit. We had a staff member recommend this year that we send them out in yellow envelopes. So maybe they're a little more visible and noticeable to the recipients. So those letters will be going out. Under law, we have 30 days to make those notifications. And again, under law, they have to be done by mail. We'll also make the effort to contact all of the units by email as well. Board members, finance officers, managers, whoever we have email addresses for, we'll be contacting as well to make sure we get notices in the hands of the units who are receiving these letters. That's important because the counties and municipalities that receive the notices then have the opportunity to appeal any potential action of the LGC to withhold a portion of their sales tax distributions. Under law, again, if their audits aren't in by 12 months within fiscal year end or June 30th, the LGC has the authority to take the action to withhold a portion of sales tax distributions. It's important to note that the statute also requires that the commission adopt guidelines for successful appeal, guidelines under which the commission would consider an appeal essentially automatically successful. The commission adopted those guidelines back in, I believe it might have been December of 2023, and then adopted revised guidelines in November of 2024. The current guidelines state that as long as the county or municipality has only failed to submit 1 year or fiscal year 2024, then that appeal would be considered successful. We are asking the units who receive the notices and who are only 1 year behind to still send to us an explanation for the delay and their plan for getting caught up. This is helpful to us to see where we can spot trends. Again, I think we know a lot of the trends that are causing these late audits, but we can see how we can better assist local governments and see what challenges they're facing in getting the audits submitted. So that's the infrastructure, sort of the how this process is going to work. So again, within the next month, staff will send out the notices. We'll continue to work to make sure that the notices are received. Mr. Butler, I know you asked us to essentially drive to all the units last year. We didn't quite go that far, but we did make sure that all the units had heard from us and received those notices. We'll continue working on that. Our great coach team who works out in the field with these units, does a great lift on that part, reaches out, makes sure everybody received it. The next thing you'll really start seeing from us is closer to July, when we're finding out who is appealing, and you'll need to start considering those appeals. We will also be posting online, Secretary Marshall, this is something you brought up last year, an ability for commission members to better assess what an appeal, the validity of an appeal, essentially. So we're posting some guidance online for units who have to submit an appeal beyond the guideline for 6, the larger one, providing guidance as to what kind of information staff or members would be looking for in order to vote to either withhold or not withhold when it came to that point. So from a numbers perspective, again, because units had until midnight this morning. I don't want to get too specific with numbers because I want to do a little quality check on what we have. But last year we sent out 135 notices to counties and municipalities. And of those, the LGC voted to withhold distributions on 5 units. Wanted to give you a quick update on those 5 units. Colerain was one of those units who is having portion of their sales tax distributions withheld. They were 2 years behind last year. They are still 2 years behind. They managed to get the 2022 submitted, but now they're behind on 23 and 24. So they sort of remained the same. Speed, the town of Speed was 2 years behind. They are now 3 years behind. The town of Littleton was 3 years behind. They're now 4 years behind. The town of Black Creek was 4 years behind, and they are now 5 years behind. The 5th unit was Lucama. They had chose not to appeal. They were willing to use the LGC's authority to give them leverage to make sure the audits got submitted. And I will say that Lucama has done a phenomenal job. Their fiscal year 2019 audit wasn't submitted until June of 23. But after that, they have submitted a total of 6 audits through February of 25. So their fiscal year 2019 audit came in 23. Their 20 audit, their 21 audit, 22, 23, 24, all have been now submitted since just through February of 2025. So they are current and up to date, whereas last year they were several years behind.
Can we send their auditor's contact information to the other?
It was a good team effort down there. They had a fantastic manager. They had a good I think they had a third-party bookkeeper in working with them, and the auditor as well, which is really the trifecta that you need to get these things done. Also wanted to, on the more good news side, we have a couple other units that did a good job of catching up. We had a number of units last year that were behind 2 years that are now wholly caught up through 2024. Bailey, Burgaw, Carthage, Elizabeth City, Macon, and McDonald all were 2 years behind last year and are now fully caught up. So again, kudos to those for getting caught up. Again, I don't want to go too much into the specifics without being able to do a quality review of the data I have. But what we're seeing overall seems to indicate that there will be less notices sent out this year. The overall number of units that are behind by 1 or 2 years has declined. However, the biggest concern area seems to be units that are now 3 years behind. Last year, we only had 2 units that were 3 years behind. This year, we're looking at probably over 10. So that, again, we'll do some QA on that data, but that's the area to me that's of concern. Notwithstanding the 2 units we have now that are 4 and 5 years behind, I think the biggest issue quickly behind that is the double-digit number of units that are 3 years behind. Again, I think good news overall in that the overall number of notices going out the door seems to be down this year, but we do have a number of concerns about the units that seem to be having a hard time catching up, and even they're getting further behind and struggling to even catch up. So just wanted to provide again that overview of the law and of where we were from last year versus this year, and happy to take any questions.
What percentage of sales tax revenue is withheld?
It can be no more than it's withheld on a monthly basis, and it's no more than 1/12 of their general fund budget. I actually have the numbers I can let you know. So this year, and I think one of the questions, sorry, let me answer your question, Treasurer. So this year, the total that'll be withheld from Black Creek, again, if the unit submits their audit, that's out, the withholding stops and the money is reverted to the unit. Or if it's 2 years after the start of withholding, the money is reverted to the unit. Black Creek will have a total of $22,800 withheld. Colerain, $9,000, Littleton, $9,000, and Town of Speed, $6,525. But that cannot exceed 5% of 1/12. So basically what their monthly general fund expenditures are, we will never withhold more than 5% of their monthly general fund expenditures. Generally, you're talking a couple $100 for these units. It's really not all that much.
Right. And are the municipalities who are in arrears able to use those funds that are withheld to pay for audits?
As soon as they submit the audit for which the funds are being withheld, they can use that obviously, for whatever purpose at that point. So it's just being withheld. And we work with Secretary Wooten and his staff to develop that process and withhold those funds.
But it's reasonably small amounts of money. I think it's the
Yes.
bottom line here.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we actually Kendra and I traveled to all the municipalities except Lucama. Lucama had gotten caught up at that time to the other 4 to present to them after these notices or the withholding was voted on by the commission, and spoke to each of them. And none of them signaled at all that it was a financial hardship or in any way causing them any financial strain to have the withholding. I think the one question that should be considered, and sort of throwing this not to discuss now, but one of the questions that came up last year in the first year was, okay, Black Creek is having withholding for not submitting their 23 audit. Now that they're not submitting their 24 audit, legally, there's no restriction on voting to withhold that same amount or whatever the amount is this year, again, for not having the 24 audit. So I think that's just something to throw out there for the commission to think about in advance. Is that something the commission would vote to do? Again, I don't think there's any legal prohibition on withholding for multiple years. So it's just a consideration as you move forward with some of the units, again, that start to become multiple years behind. Will the commission vote to sort of stack those withholdings?
I will just make the comment that Black Creek, that's so far behind, they have taken some steps to bring in a third-party accountant and bring in a new auditor to try and push that forward. So they are trying to make some progress on that. Just wanted to make sure that you all knew that as well.
And our coach team is actively involved with all of these units. So this wasn't they get a notification and they don't hear from us for another year until the next notification. Our coach team is actively involved with all these units.
And Debbie, since the legislation said that the LGC can set up the structure, LGC could have a policy that the withholding is going to go to the next year so that can be a decision that's made, kind of an administrative decision.
I think it's not even as much as a policy. It's just that I raised it because the question was raised previously. Could the commission vote to do this? And I don't see any reason you couldn't. It would just be literally implementing or exercising that authority for the next year, which just sort of,
right,
again, almost to me stacks on top of the decision by the LGC last year. So I don't think it would require any additional policy or any additional administrative work. It would just be the same process exercised again.
Is the amount variable by the LGC, or is that in statute?
No, that's in statute. It's no more than 5% of 1/12 of their general fund expenditures. So we looked at their budget last year to see what their last adopted general fund budget was, and then we used that. That's the maximum that can be withheld. Sorry, that's how much can be withheld monthly. The amount that is withheld is based on 150% of their last audit. So there's the overall how much can be the total to be withheld, and then how that's sort of dispersed monthly in withholdings.
I'm not suggesting we ought to do that, but I just didn't know if that was in our authority, because generally withholding money gets people to change their ways, but it hasn't worked exactly.
And so the total amount to be withheld is fixed in statute at 150% of the cost of the last audit, and then the amount monthly that's withheld that was more of an administrative matter that staff just calculated out and communicated to Secretary's office, so. I just wanted to put that out there since that'll be coming before the commission in the next few months. Again, this is only the second year of implementation. I think we've listened to some of the concerns from last year and responded to some of the challenges from last year, and we'll continue to do our best to implement this as the statute lays out.
Are the ones that have multiple delinquencies really taking it seriously with your care team to try to get back where they need to be?
Some yes and some no.
Well, the proof's in the pudding, yes. You know.
I'll just put it on the record, the state auditor made notes on those municipalities.
Well, one unit told us that when we said we're going to withhold it, they said, go ahead, yeah. No appeal. Just don't bother us, I guess.
Perhaps we should host a parade for Lucama as well.
I know.
Carrots and sticks.
In my Senate district, I give them a girl.
Okay, any other questions on this topic?
Thank you.
Okay, other items? Okay, our next regular LGC meeting is May 6th. Are there any other comments from the board?
Do I remember, I missed the beginning, did I remember this is going to be your last meeting?
Yes.
But it's Cindy's birthday today, too.
I was gonna get that.
Throw the.
I want to jump on and
What a
express
great birthday.
my great support for everything that you do and have done for all across all these years. I will miss you.
Thank you.
And happy birthday.
So please stick around. We have some refreshments to celebrate, and I guess we're celebrating Cindy's birthday as well. Thank you again, Debbie. Thank you, everybody. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Someone, Secretary.
Second.
Mr. Burns.
Always happy to make that one.
Call the roll. Sure.
Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Auditor Bullock. Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
You and Treasurer Funds.
Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned. Appreciate everybody. Should have learned that stuff.